Meanwhile, we have an immigration expert in Europe who is warning the EU that there are 50 million Muslims supporting violent jihad. This is Professor Ruud Koopmans of the Netherlands warned the EU today to block the entry of any refugees whose identity cannot be categorically confirmed. He said that of the 1 billion, here, listen to the math, the process he goes through. He says 1 billion adult Muslims in the world. He said half of them are attached to an arch-conservative Islam, which places little worth on the rights of women, homosexuals, or people of other faith. So understand that. In Islam, we have different sects or different, Christianity, we call them denominations, okay? So they have different groups of Islam, but he says half of them are involved in the most arch-conservative versions of that. So that would be about 500 million conservative Muslims. But he said, let's say about 10% of those are violent conservatives. That would be 50 million. That's how he gets to the math. And he said he thinks that that's actually an understatement to say 50 million. He said in his own country, they had 11% of Muslims agreed with a statement, quote, there are situations in which it is acceptable for me from the perspective of my faith that I use violence. So that's where he's coming up with that. Those are questions that they put out there. Meanwhile, we have a former State Department official under Obama say they never wanted me to say radical Islam. See, this is the problem. We have to be able to say what the problem is. If we are afraid to speak the name of the people who want to cut off our heads, who want to subjugate us into slavery, who want to subjugate women, who want to throw homosexuals off of buildings, if we're afraid to even call it what it is, we'll never defeat it. This is an op-ed that he wrote for the New York Times, Richard Stengel. He previously served under the Secretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, said there was a very clear reason that no one could or did label various acts of terror as a product of, quote, radical Islam. Instead, they used the much less loaded term violent extremism. He said radical Islam, we didn't stay away from it because we were too timid or because we were politically correct. We were just concerned that this would alienate Muslim allies in the Middle East. Well, you know what? They need to deal with it themselves. Again, if the Muslims who are not the half of the Muslims who embrace this arch-conservatism, if they cannot push back against it, if they're not willing to push back against it, we don't need to worry about what they think because they're irrelevant to the situation. If they're going to be victims, if they're going to sit silently while the radical arch-conservatives put out this hate and convert people to their form of Islam, if they can't even win the argument in their countries, then what do we care about having them as allies? And this is what he said in the New York Times. He said, radical Islamic extremism, there, I've said it. For 3 years as Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, I could not and would not utter that phrase. No one in the Obama administration could or did. So there you go. That's where it lies. And yet, we see in France, Marine Le Pen goes to the site of the truck attack in Nice that killed 86 people and wounded probably, I forget exactly the toll, but it was more than 100. She goes there to illustrate a point. She says, we are supposed to be in a state of emergency in France, but you realize that every night across the Paris suburbs and now in several towns, we witness scenes of pillaging with police forces systematically targeted and property being set on fire. All of this is done with total impunity. So we end up wondering, where is the government? Where is the interior minister? He has not said anything. He is completely absent. They don't consider it their job to protect France. They will build a wall around the Eiffel Tower. Presumably, they'll build a wall around the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, but they will not build a wall around the Paris people to protect the people of Paris or the French people to protect them in any situation. I guess, presumably, they want to preserve the landmarks. They want to preserve the works of art for when there's only the globalists left after they've gotten rid of the rest of us who cause them problems.
In case you haven't heard, InfoWars has become the most influential media outlet in America. We're making freedom go viral. And now we are proud to announce a new weapon in the epic battle against the globalists. InfoWars Prime, where you can watch live high-definition feeds of The Alex Jones Show, plus exclusive insider videos from the InfoWars crew and behind-the-scenes action. Go to Infowars.com/app and download today. today. InfoWars Prime is available right now for your iPhone or Android. You will have access to exclusive videos that you can't see anywhere else. And that means live coverage of events and breaking news on location as it happens. You can also take advantage of amazing deals from the InfoWars store that are only available for InfoWars Prime subscribers. That's InfoWars Prime at Infowars.com/app. And if you can hear my voice, you are the resistance.